Everything is pressurized because of the projecting for attainment. Therefore, let's dissolve this, or the projection to the well, to fixate for attainment. With everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself. It needs to be using these reminders to dissolve. With everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself. Let's dissolve the delusive attachment. The projection for attainment is a pressure for oneself. Whatever that is expected for, that is a pressure to oneself. Without the projection for attainment, there is no pressure at all. Therefore, let's purify through the reminders that purify themselves. With everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself, not attached to the non-attachment itself. Let's proceed simultaneously with everything, with these reminders that purify themselves. It's impossible to blame anything at all. All the projection for attainment is a pressure to oneself. Therefore, use the reminders that purify themselves well. With everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself. With everything, discard the discarding itself. With everything, not attached to the non-attachment itself. With everything, give up the giving up itself. Let's dissolve the delusive attachment. Let's dissolve the Samudhaya. All the attachment is the Samudhaya. Let's dissolve it. It's the root of all causes of all problems. It's the center of all problems. Since the beginning of fixate to oneself and all things, fixate in all forms, branching out of the Samudhaya. Therefore, step back to conclude, to purify the conclusion itself, the reminders that purify themselves. With everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself. With everything, give up the giving up itself. It's not about giving up anything. It will dissolve the delusive attachment within itself. When everything, no grasping for the non-grasping itself. This is not about not grasping for anything, not attached to anything, not attached to the non-attachment itself. It will dissolve right at the root. Use the reminders that purify themselves more often. These kind of reminders, they purify themselves. Therefore, use them in order to continue to purify. They are the sentences that purify themselves. The reminders or the recall that purify themselves. Why is that? They will purify all the system of Titti at the same time. It affects samsara, because samsara use the recalls without purifying themselves. It creates the becoming, recalling, creating the becoming without purifying itself. And it's a lot like that in the samsara. They use the reminders and the recalls that proceed onwards with the becoming. Therefore, we need to use the recalls and the reminders that purify themselves. This automatically will purify the reminders and the recalls of samsara. And these reminders will not become samsara. It will be truly end within themselves. No grasping for the non-grasping itself is not about not grasping for anything. Instead, it will give ending to the non-grasping itself. Non-grasping will give ending to the non-grasping itself. Later on, there will be no longer pressure. All the mindfulness that has been practiced is the kind of becoming. It creates realm of existence. It's not a kind of mindfulness that cuts through itself. It's grasping for itself. It creates realms of existence. Even they practice extremely, there is no liberation within itself because they practice for attainment. Mindfulness is anatta. To grasp for mindfulness like that is like grasping for the anatta. What kind of self is there? Is the desire and delusion totally from this grasping. Cut through the cutting itself. Mind from mind itself without grasping for mind. It's not about practice for attainment. All the practice of everyone is samsara within itself. The more practice is the more grasping. All that much more for meditation is samsara within itself. The more they do, the more it becomes samsara. Without discarding itself, without disengage from disengagement itself, without putting down itself, deludedly practicing, deludedly reciting, deludedly meditating for attainment. Listen again. Otherwise, it's just dense, proceeding with density. End yourself instead. It's not that you are ending anything. End yourself. End your own self within the practice. It's not about ending anything. End the ending itself. Listen again. Because otherwise you're gonna be dense to the future. Brahma realm, angel realm, all realms will be lengthy. Practicing in the way like yourself, recitation, meditation, just like becoming karma on and on into the future. Just grasping and grasping. That is not ending the ending itself. Doing so much more. Without letting go of the letting go itself, not giving up the giving up itself, not shorten the short. What is there to be made as in the practice? That is just grasping. In this way, samsara is lengthy because of the practice, because of meditation, because of recitation. Listen again. Listen to that which gives ending to the listening. Listen to that which is not about grasping for even the listening itself. What is there to be grasped? Mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, meditative power, insight, and wisdom. Grasping for that which is not about grasping. All of this has been given enlightened to. Everything is anatta. It's not something to be fixated upon. Practicing for attainment, that's not the way. You don't listen well, huh? You don't have good ear. You listen to Father and not cut through the knowing. Listen and interpret as one's own way. That's not it. Wisdom for the wisdom, what's that? That is delusion, totally. That is delusive attachment, totally. That is greed. The more you do, the more greed is there. The lengthy of realms of existence is there. Listen again. Listen to that which is not about grasping itself, not grasping for the non-grasping itself, not attached to the non-attachment itself. This is not about meditation for attainment or practicing for attainment. Cut through deluded knowing is not about follow in knowing. Cut through accordingly. The delusive attachment is blocking oneself. In the practice, with everything is derived from no grasping for the non-grasping itself, not attached to the non-attachment itself. That is the Mahabarami. That is the great perfections, the essence from the great perfections. That's why Luang Por said they don't have good ears, listening and not cut through accordingly. They just create the path to the enlightenment all by themselves. They don't listen and cut through accordingly.